When you were young, you may have believed words were just sounds, tossed casually into the air and forgotten by the time they faded. But I want you to picture for a moment what those words did after they left your mouth. Imagine them like orders written in fire, carried down into your very blood, into the tiny scribes that make up your body, your cells. They don't laugh at your words, they don't ignore them, and they don't negotiate. They obey. That is the truth Thoth tried to carve into his forbidden grimoire, the truth that humanity has buried under centuries of careless speech. You may think to yourself, I've lived long enough. I've said 1,000 phrases like, I'm tired or I can't go on. And nothing extraordinary happened. But look deeper. Didn't your shoulders sag? Didn't your chest tighten? Didn't your strength weaken in subtle but undeniable ways? Your body listened, not because it judged you, not because it wanted you to collapse, but because it has always been loyal, too loyal perhaps, to the master that speaks through the tongue. Thoth's warning was never about metaphor. It was about mechanics, vibrational mechanics that tie your voice to your flesh. Once, long before men forgot, there was no gap between intention and manifestation. If you felt love, your cells poured out vitality. If you commanded healing, the wound closed. Words were not practiced. They were alive. And every cell, every spark of your temple, waited eagerly to respond. But something broke. Something got corrupted. And that corruption has shaped your entire life, even if you've never had the words to name it. Over time, words lost their weight. They became filler, chatter, meaningless repetition. Think of the times you said things you didn't mean, out of habit, out of politeness, out of frustration. Your spirit was absent from the sound, but the sound still echoed through your body. The cells, faithful to a fault, didn't distinguish between sacred command and careless noise. They obeyed both equally and without question. That's where the rebellion began. Not loud, not violent, but a quiet mutiny within. Pain here, inflammation there, fatigue that seemed unexplainable. The rebellion wasn't your body betraying you. It was your body proving its loyalty to your own scattered words. That's the tragedy and also the secret power. When you said, "This is killing me," your body obeyed. When you muttered, "I'm too old for this," your body bowed its head and drained its own energy to match. Each phrase, each outburst, became a decree written into your tissues. And because you repeated them without realizing it, they became law. Day after day, decade after decade, the law of decay was enforced not by fate, not by bad luck, but by your own unconscious tongue. Let that sink in. Thoth's voice comes through the centuries like a stern father shaking your shoulders. Humanity didn't get sick by accident. It got sick by repetition. That means you didn't lose vitality because time had to take it from you. You lost it because your own words gave it away. And if that is true, then you also hold the power to reverse it, to speak a word that heals, a phrase that reawakens the original design. But here's the painful truth. Your body doesn't care if the command destroys or renews. It doesn't evaluate. It doesn't judge. It serves. That's why anger inflames the liver. Hopelessness weakens the nerves. Rejection hollows the stomach. The body carries out exactly what it hears. Think of all those moments you cursed your own strength, even jokingly. My back is shot. I can't remember anything these days. My blood is bad. Did you think those phrases vanished into thin air? They didn't. They lodged into your bloodstream, rode through your veins like sacred carriers, and informed every cell what to do. No filter, no correction. Absolute obedience. And now at 60, maybe you feel the accumulation of decades of those commands. Aches that never leave. Fatigue you can't explain. The doctor says it's age, but Thoth whispers another possibility. Your cells have been too loyal for too long. They've been following orders that were never meant to be given. That's where the grimoire becomes more than a dusty relic. It becomes a mirror. Because what you spoke, you became. And what you can learn to speak again with awareness can rebuild what you thought was gone. I know you might be skeptical. After all, the world has told you that disease is random, that age is merciless, that biology follows only cold rules. But think of this. Every law of biology was once an invisible command. Your heart beats not out of habit, but because the original word ignited it. Your breath moves because the spirit commanded air to flow. The rules you were taught to believe in are only the echoes of the first sacred decree. If those decrees can be written once, they can be written again. What does that mean for you now? It means you don't need to beg for healing. You don't need to chant endlessly or force yourself into belief. You need only to learn the difference between noise and command, between casual speech and the living word. One phrase spoken with total presence, total alignment, carries more weight than years of half-hearted affirmations. And your cells are waiting, always waiting, for that kind of command. The betrayal never came from them. Came from forgetfulness. From your side. From humanity's side. That's what Thoth recorded in urgency, that the bridge between spirit and body was broken by the unconscious use of words. But a broken bridge can be rebuilt. The forgotten command can be remembered. Imagine for a moment that you could stand again in that place where words were alive, where every syllable carried fire, where every cell bowed in reverence. Imagine speaking once, and having your flesh obey instantly, not out of effort but out of recognition. That is not a fantasy. That is your birthright. You have felt pieces of it even in this lifetime, though you may not have noticed. Think of the times you told yourself, I will make it. And somehow you did. Think of the moment you decided, I'm done with this pain. And the pain lifted. These were not coincidences. They were glimpses of the forgotten power. The problem was not that it didn't work. The problem was that you didn't realize how much it always worked. And so you scattered your commands, some for life, many for destruction. The rebellion of your body was simply the echo of your own divided voice. And now here you are, with the years behind you, perhaps with a body that has borne the weight of too many false decrees. But let me tell you this, it's not too late. Your cells have not stopped listening. They are still waiting for the true voice, the voice that commands with presence. They don't need repetition. They don't need shouting. They don't even need belief. They need clarity. One phrase spoken as the living word is enough. That is what Thoth's Forbidden Grimoire was trying to show. That power is not outside you, not in a ritual, not in a priest, not in some distant star. It's in the tongue that has betrayed you and can save you. It's in the breath you've taken for granted. It's in the silence before you speak. You may ask, why was this knowledge forbidden? Why hide it? Because nothing is more dangerous to the systems of control than a human being who realizes his body serves his soul. Not his habits, not his fears, not his false beliefs. To know that your cells obey you is to become sovereign over yourself again. And sovereignty cannot be given. It must be remembered. That's why you're hearing this now, why you've stayed with me this far. Something in you knows you've been scattering commands your whole life, and something in you wants to take them back. So let this chapter be that turning point. No more casual curses on your body. No more careless decrees of weakness. From this moment, begin to remember that every word you speak is law to your flesh. And when the time comes, when you learn the phrase that must be spoken only once, your body will not hesitate. It will bow, it will obey, it will celebrate because that is what it was created for. And in that moment, you will not only feel younger, stronger, freer, you will feel sovereign, a man reunited with his own temple. That is the beginning. That is the restoration. And it begins not tomorrow, not with someone else's blessing, but with the words you choose from now on. Your tongue is not just flesh. It is the throne of power. Use it with presence, and your cells will remember. Use it with carelessness, and your cells will rebel. The choice has always been yours. You've already seen how your own words, scattered carelessly across a lifetime, became laws written into your body, shaping aches, draining energy, even shortening breath, not because your body ever betrayed you but because it has always obeyed without question. That was the truth you began to face in the first part of this journey, and now we must move forward, because knowing how the fall happened is not enough. You must learn how to rebuild, how to restore the bridge that was broken between your soul and your flesh. Thoth never left the grimoire as a mere warning, he left it as a map, and the first step on that map is breath. You may think of breathing as the most ordinary thing, the background hum of your life, but Thoth makes it clear, without conscious breath, no command will ever hold power. Breath is not just oxygen exchange, It is the living bridge between what you feel and what is born into matter. You can live without speaking, you can live without moving for a time, but without breath, everything ceases, because it is the thread that ties spirit to body. That's why he called the first restoration rite the sacred breath Ankita, a name that is not poetry but vibration. Ank means life in eternal renewal. Nita means divine principle manifested. Together they form a key. When you breathe Ankita, you are not calming yourself or chasing relaxation. You are reactivating the original axis of command that connects your heart, your will, and your voice. Think of these as 3 command portals. The heart, where emotion becomes frequency, not shallow feelings but the deep truth of what you are living. The solar plexus, the place just above the navel, the generator of pure will, the energy that does not argue or resist but simply pushes forward. And the throat, the throne of the sacred verb, the place where intention takes form as sound. Most men live their whole lives without synchronizing these 3. They feel one thing in the heart, will another in the belly, and speak a third through the mouth. That division is why the body does not respond. But when the breath moves with purpose through these 3 gates, something ancient stirs. The heart feels and vibrates honestly, the solar plexus ignites will, and the throat holds the silence until the right phrase is spoken, not by the mouth but by the whole field. The decree is simple yet powerful. My body serves me because I am the living word. Not a mantra, not a hope, but a decree. When spoken after the 3 breaths, it reorganizes the entire body. Imagine the relief of your cells, which for decades have been battered by conflicting signals, suddenly hearing coherence again. They don't resist. They rejoice, because this is what they were created to follow. And yet, Thoth knew that breath alone was not enough. For even if the bridge is restored, there is still a river inside you that keeps carrying the old commands, the blood. To most people, blood is just fluid, a biological necessity. But in the grimoire it is revealed as Heka, the subtle river of power that circulates not only nutrients but memory. Every drop contains a vibrational record of what you have said, felt, and believed. That's why families talk about things running in the blood. It is not just genetics, it is vibrational inheritance. When you say things like, "This disease is in my family," or "My blood is weak," the river carries those decrees with absolute loyalty, installing them into biochemical pathways. The blood does not argue, transmits. If the command is elevated, it distributes vitality. If the command is destructive, it distributes ruin. That is why even casual remarks about weakness sink deeper than you realize. The bloodstream obeys with precision. So Thoth gave another key, a vibrational release word, Sokai. Not to be shouted, not to be chanted like a charm, but spoken with full presence during the silence that follows conscious breathing. It is the command to the blood to stop carrying old orders, to dissolve the magnetism of unconscious decrees. Imagine a muddy river gradually clearing until it shines like crystal. That is what happens when Sokai is spoken correctly. The blood begins to carry light instead of residue. And once that happens, cellular regeneration becomes possible, not as a miracle, but as the natural consequence of giving correct orders again. But there is still another obstacle, perhaps the most insidious of all, the emotions you never allowed yourself to feel. These do not flow like blood. They do not dissipate with time. They hide. They fester. They become silent poisons lodged in the field of your body. Anger you swallowed sits heavy in the liver. Sadness you denied weakens the lungs. Fear you refused to face nests in the heart and the adrenals. And no matter how many times you try to smile or convince yourself you've moved on, the body listens to the vibration beneath the mask. The cells hear what you hold when no one is watching. Thoth was blunt. What you feel and don't express becomes an invisible decree, and the body obeys. So he taught a ritual of transmutation in 3 precise steps. The first step is naming. Not in vague terms like "I feel bad," but in sharp honesty. I feel anger, I feel grief, I feel fear. Naming drags the emotion out of the shadows, where it has power, and brings it into the light, where it weakens. The second step is breathing directly into the affected organ. You focus your awareness and inhale as if sending air into the place that holds the pain. 3 slow breaths, each one saying without words, I see you. I will not ignore you anymore. And finally, the third step is the decree. Command revoked, release authorized, create only peace. Not a suggestion, not a hope, but a new contract written into your energy field. When done sincerely, the field listens, the organ responds, and the cells reorganize. Pain loosens, tension releases, because for the first time in years, perhaps decades, the command is aligned with truth. This is how the rebellion ends. Not by fighting the body, not by suppressing symptoms, but by reclaiming your authority and giving clear, aligned commands. Breath restores the bridge. So Kai purifies the blood. Honest naming and revocation dissolve the poisons of buried emotion. Each of these steps rebuilds your temple from the inside out. And if you are thinking, this all sounds simple, almost too simple, remember that what is truly powerful never needs to be complicated. Complexity is often a distraction. The essence of power is clarity. That's why Thoth's grimoire could fit into so few pages yet outlast libraries of noise. It was never about rituals heavy with incense and symbols. It was about the mechanics of how the soul speaks to the body. You have lived 60 years with rivers of unconscious commands flowing through you. You have felt the drag of repetition, the weight of unspoken feelings, the sting of careless words. But you can decide even now to redirect the current. Your cells are not old in the way you think. They renew constantly. What makes you feel aged is not time itself but the accumulation of corrupted commands. Change the command, and the renewal that was always built into your biology begins to show itself again. So imagine tonight, instead of muttering tired complaints, you breathe Ankita, you speak Sokai, you name the hidden weight, you revoke it, and for the first time in years your body receives a clean order. What would that feel like? Lighter blood? A steadier heart? Organs responding with relief instead of resistance. This is not fantasy. It is technology of vibration, written long before electricity or engines, yet more precise than any machine. Thoth called it forbidden not because it was evil, but because it was dangerous to those who wanted men powerless. If every man at your age knew that his words were still laws to his flesh, imagine the freedom, imagine the vitality, imagine the rebellion against resignation. That's why you are hearing this now, not to be entertained, but to be reminded that you are not at the mercy of your body. Your body is at the mercy of your word. And the moment you align breath, blood, and unspoken emotions, you reclaim the throne. You reclaim command. You stop living as a victim of biology and begin to live again as the sovereign of your temple. That is the essence of Chapter 2, and it leads us toward the next mystery. The deeper secret of the sacred geometry that holds your flesh together, waiting to be restored. You've walked with me through the first truth, that your body has always obeyed your words even when those words were careless, and then through the second truth, that you can restore the bridge with breath, cleanse the river of blood, and dissolve the poisons of buried emotion. But Thoth's grimoire doesn't stop there. If it did, it would leave you with a bridge half-built, a river running clear, and yet no foundation to hold the temple steady. Because even if the breath is sacred, even if the blood flows clean, even if emotions are released, the structure of the body itself must be restored. Imagine a house whose wiring has been fixed, whose water runs clear, whose windows let in light, but whose very walls are cracked. Sooner or later it collapses. The body is like that. Beneath the surface there is geometry, invisible but real, shapes upon which your organs and systems were built. Thoth revealed in the Forbidden Grimoire that each part of your body rests upon a sacred pattern. The heart beats within a golden spiral, the lungs vibrate in an octagon, the liver resonates with a hexagon, the kidneys flow like a sine wave. These are not symbols, not metaphors, but actual vibrational scaffolds. They are why your heart can keep a steady rhythm, why your breath once was full and balanced, why your digestion once flowed with ease. But when a man lives outside his truth, when he repeats false commands, when fear becomes daily bread, those patterns distort. The golden spiral twists unevenly. The octagon collapses into angles that don't balance. The sine wave turns jagged. And the body begins to show it. Irregular heartbeat, shallow breathing, disordered metabolism, blocked release of energy. You may have felt all of these in your own life and thought they were the marks of aging. But what if they are marks of distortion, geometry pulled out of harmony by years of misaligned vibration? That is what Thoth insists. He says before you can command, you must rebuild the architecture. Otherwise, the command has nowhere to land. It disperses. The cells don't refuse, but they freeze, confused, unable to act. That's why many men speak with authority and feel nothing change. Their altar is cracked. Their geometry is broken. To fix this, Thoth taught a ritual he called Seek Mart. It is not just movement, not just sound, but the precise union of gesture, voice, and intention, performed as if you were drawing shapes of light back into your field. Imagine raising your arm in a circle not just to stretch muscle but to restore the octagon of the lungs. Imagine laying your hand upon your side not just for comfort but to reactivate the hexagon of the liver. Each gesture traces a form. Each sound vibrates the code that belongs to that form. Done in reverence, this is not exercise, it is realignment. Done with presence, this is not chanting, it is ignition. And when the geometry is restored, something begins to happen almost immediately. Pain recedes, energy flows, organs respond with lightness. It feels like you are finally standing inside your own body again instead of stumbling through a crooked house. But even that is not the end. For geometry is the foundation, the breath is the bridge, the blood is the river, the emotions are the hidden chambers. But every temple needs an altar. And Thoth says the altar is not outside in stone buildings or rituals. It is in your chest. The miab, the altar of the soul in the body. The heart as the throne where soul touches flesh. This is where all creation must begin. When a man lives outside his truth, this altar becomes corrupted, not physically, but vibrationally. The heart's field, once coherent, becomes noisy, sending static instead of harmony. That's why so many men at your age say the right phrases but feel no change. Their heart isn't aligned. The altar is dark. And the body, recognizing the false authority, refuses to respond. So Thoth gave a simple but non-negotiable ritual. Hands on the chest, not symbolically but as a gesture of presence. Consciousness must be called back into the body. Then begins the triangular breath. Inhale from the base of the spine up to the heart, pause briefly at the chest, exhale down into the belly. 3 points forming a circuit. And then the decree, I consecrate my heart as a temple. Only truth lives here. When this is spoken with intention, the miab reignites. And the body, like a temple restored, becomes ready again to hear the creative word. At this point, the grimoire reaches its most delicate secret, the ignited word. The word that doesn't come from the mind but from an aligned heart, a coherent field, and a body restored. Thoth explains that there are 3 kinds of speech. The speech of the victim, which complains. The speech of the ego, which manipulates. And the speech of the soul, which decrees. Only the last has power to alter biology, because it doesn't speak opinion, it speaks vibrational law. But there are conditions. The breath must be sacred. The heart must be coherent. Presence must be total. When these 3 are aligned, one phrase spoken once can reprogram cellular memory. This is not revealed at the beginning because it is not a trick or shortcut. It arises naturally when the field is ready. That is why, Thoth warns, no creative word works if the soul is disconnected from the body. You must first reincarnate, not by being born again, but by returning fully into yourself. He even says sleep is not rest, but a sacred ceremony, nocturnal reincarnation. Each night the ego lays down, the rational mind releases control, and the body can be dismantled and reassembled. But only if you enter sleep with awareness. To the initiate, lying down is not shutting off. It is surrender, a dive into the vibrational womb. He whispers before sleep, Corpusum secundum exemplar perfium. Let my body be reborn in the original pattern. And as the body dissolves into stardust in imagination, the field receives the command and rebuilds the geometry overnight. This is not fantasy. It is vibrational technology. And then, when everything has been restored, the breath consecrated, the blood purified, the emotions transmuted, the geometry rebuilt, the heart reconsecrated, and the soul reincarnated. Only then does Thoth reveal the final phrase. It is simple but ultimate. I am the word that reactivates the form. I command the flesh to obey my light. Spoken once, in full presence, it does what all your scattered phrases could never do. It doesn't beg. It doesn't repeat. It doesn't hope. It decrees. And in that instant, the cells recognize their true master again. They do not hesitate. They obey. Regeneration begins. The blood flows lighter. The heart steadies. Pain disappears. Energy reorganizes. You understand at last it was never metaphor. It was code. A sacred vibrational technology hidden in a grimoire, forbidden not because it was evil but because it was too powerful for the distracted. And you realize now, at your age, that sovereignty was never taken from you. You forgot it. Your whole body was only waiting for this one command. And as you feel it respond, you know with certainty you are not at the mercy of flesh. The flesh is at the mercy of the living word you carry. That is the completion of the temple, the restoration of the altar, the ignition of the word. And it is your choice, here and now, to speak as a victim, to speak as an ego, or to speak as a sovereign. Only one of those will make your cells celebrate, and they have been waiting your whole life to hear it.